Welcome to Experiencing Consciousness. My name is Dyba.
And I'm Dr. Kathryn Rossi. We're happy you're here.
Hi. Recently we were talking about, during the live Q&A session that we had, we were talking about, someone asked the question about the future of psychotherapy. And while answering that question, the topic of psychosocial genomics came out. And, maybe it would be a good time and place to develop a bit on that. So I'll just say, I'll just ask a question. What is psychosocial genomics? And now keeping quiet.
Okay, well, psychosocial genomics is, in my opinion, my very strong opinion, is the future of psychotherapy. And because it gives a feedback straight away, or it has the opportunity to give a feedback straight away, is something happening on a physical level. So everybody wants to know, am I an effective psychotherapist? Is my client getting what they need? And so we need to have these feedback loops. So psychosocial genomics. So you think of psyche, it's your mind, correct? Social, we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a society. We live in a family. We live in a couple. We live in a profession that we bounce ideas off of each other. And that's just the intellectual part. But also when you have an affection for someone, there's something that you can feel that physically. If you have a disdain for someone, whoa, you can feel that physically. So how is that happening? Because it seems to happen so fast. We call that intuition, but what's happening in the body? So if you get down to the cellular level, which is where everything is going to happen anyway, and then the communication is going to go back and forth between the cells and, your body, and then your mind is going to make sense of that. So psychosocial genomics, it's a big, long word, but when you think about that, the mind, within the context of living life, which is social, that there's genes that are being turned on and turned off as a result of that. Does that make sense in a simple way to you, Jan?
So what you are saying is that by the power of our minds, by the power of the experience that we are actually encountering, we can do something on the level of genes?
Absolutely. So it's considered the cellular genomic level. So of course, when you're born, you have a certain DNA. So you have a certain set of genes. And it used to be that, okay, that's firm, none of that's changing, you're born this way, and almost like this predetermined of how it's going to be, how you're going to act and react. But it turns out that there's so many different functions of most genes, whether they're turned on, whether they're turned off, in what order. It can be very complicated. But the idea that your mind can actually turn on this process is really exciting.
So the gene expression is actually turning on or off certain genes that are responsible for certain functions.
Yes, exactly. And that changes even moment to moment. So that it can change in a moment, it could change a little bit over time. And even the DNA that you were born with, they're finding out that modifies throughout the course of your life a little. It's pretty stable. We need to have a stable DNA. So here's the exciting part to me. In every single cell of your body, you have 22, 23,000 genes. That's huge. I mean, that is really amazing. So when you can enhance the communication, that each gene could do maybe up to 100 different things. And so to me, the choice points are infinite. And that when people come to see us in therapy, they're stuck in like one lane where they need to maybe visit the other lanes on the highway and open up to other possibilities. And so this is an opportunity in understanding that these genes express themselves in cascades. So one gene may be turned on or off, and then it affects this cascade down the line over the hours. We've only taken it to 24, but how this changes. So what you do, how you behave, what you believe, what's your excitement, what's your growth, is all going to affect the gene expression.
And if I ask you, how is it done stepwise? Is it a topic for another podcast, or can we, briefly address that now?
Well, so the idea, when it comes from the mind, you consider it the top down. Your head is on the top of your body, so that's easy to remember. Now, in pharmacology, for instance, so if you're taking a drug or if you're eating food, for instance, that goes into the body, and that communication, it bottoms up. And so we're not one thing or the other. We're not dual in this way. Descartes, as good as he was, he didn't get it right to say that there was a mind-body split. There isn't. You've got one body. You can't use your mind without your body, and you can't use your body without your mind. So the exciting part of psychosocial genomics is it begins to unite this factor. So it can be kind of complicated of, how are these things turned on or turned off? It's electrical, it's electrochemical, it's, the different kinds of nerves that there are within the body and how they communicate with one another. It's really fascinating. But I think more importantly is, what are the findings of the study of psychosocial genomics? Is that of interest to you?
Of course. And from what I know, you were at one of the teams that actually did the research into hypnosis using genomic microarrays. Is
Exactly.
matrix, something like that?
Yes.
I don't know
That it's pronounced differently in different languages. And so I learned it as microarrays. And so what happened in our studies, some of them anyway, the blood sample was taken before therapy. Therapy was then given, and immediately after therapy, another blood sample was taken. And then 24 hours later, another blood sample was taken, and the entire genome was looked at to see what got turned on or what got turned off. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's cool. But let me just clarify a few things. So the actual real session of psychotherapy was performed during the research.
Correct. And I'll get to that in just a moment, because that's really important. What was the treatment?
Yeah.
But I want to get to the results, because this is mind expanding. This is what psychotherapy can be all about. That in looking at the results of it. Now, we did this with hypnosis and a very specific protocol, and there's many different kinds of hypnosis. But imagine this. Is your immune system function important to you, Jan?
I think on many levels, yes.
I mean, it's really important to all of us.
It probably translates into my phenomenological experience if it doesn't work properly, right?
Precisely. So what we found is the ingredients that stimulate a really well-working immune system happened as a result of the therapy, as is expressed in the changes of the genes. So you might ask, well, what were those? So when you think of a good immune system, you've got good oxidation, you don't have inflammation, you have healthy cells, and the cells that aren't healthy, you want them to just be absorbed. You want to be able to grow new tissue. That's what makes a really healthy immune system. Well, guess what? The findings in every single study that's been done with psychosocial genomics is that the inflammation gets turned off. So the inflammation genes get turned off. The oxidation genes get turned off. The process of apoptosis, which is healthy cell death, gets turned on. And the signature to grow stem cells gets turned on.
How would you interpret all those results, for people who are listening us? What does it mean?
The building blocks, when you think about it, the building blocks for a healthy body, could that not begin with a healthy mind? That's the question, right? So if through the course of the therapy, which is the mind-body action, if the mind is turned on the body to have a great immune system response, that is going to then go back to the mind and having a healthy mind. What do you make of that?
So it's actually circular dependency.
Exactly, because it's always a circle in life. Like I love some of the, I'm thinking of in The Lion King, where they talk about the circle of life, but everything is a circle, is that, you start here, you move here, you move here, you come back to that. And then the next iteration is built on the last one. And that's what makes us human and makes us and allows us to grow. We're always changing. It's a circle. So
it's more a spiral than the circle, right?
Yeah, it's a spiral, and you hope the spiral's going up instead of going down.
Yeah. Well, it can go down if it goes deeper and deeper and deeper still.
Right. Well, if that's say, for instance, if you've got you're really nervous, there's an anxiety going on. Well, you want that to spiral downward into comfort. So one isn't right and one isn't wrong. And then when you're really comfortable, but you've got to respond to something, well, you better amp that back up again, type of thing. So, but for years, we've been thinking of psychotherapy as just, well, let's come to terms with a trauma. And I think that's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I think it's limiting. Is that I want to help people live a great life. I think we're put on this earth to be happy. We just have to figure out how to do it. And some of the ways that you can become happy is you face those really difficult truths on the inside of yourself. And that to me is a lot of what psychotherapy is about. And but imagine this for a person who is just in the depths of things. They wonder if they're ever going to come out, and you just happen to have it's not available yet, but where a saliva test could show what's happening on the gene expression level. And if you could say that to your client, I know you're having a really rough time of it, but guess what's happening? There's a lot of indications of fantastic health that's being stimulated in you.
Whoa, that would be a totally different frame of reference. Totally.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? And when you think about that, the other thing that people come in for therapy for, they never say this, but they've lost confidence, in themselves or in others. And anything that we can do that helps to restore that confidence, that belief that, you know what, I'm actually at the base of things, I'm okay. Well, if you're okay, you can get better, can't you?
Yeah, you can develop. And
Yeah. And then the other thing that I love, courage. It's like the courage to go to the depths of where you need to go, avoiding nothing, not having fear of taking the I call it the I wonder attitude. It's like, well, I wonder what will happen next. Will I find that I'm freer now? Will I find I'm clearer now? Will I find I can love more now? Will I find that it's time to take a few people out of my life that is just not working? There's so many choice points that you have, and the way that nature has that worked out is with the expression of the genes that then go throughout your body and your mind that say, what about this and what about that? A very different perspective, Jan.
Yeah, that's true. So can I now be that specific on the specific level that I love and ask you some technical questions about the research?
Okay, and let's see if I can answer them, or if I have to say, Jan, I got to look that one up.
Okay, so the first one would be, I've got few. I don't know in what order we can answer them, but first of all, I know that during that study that you were referring to, the hypnosis session was done. So I'm hugely interested in what actually was done, and if there are any interesting stories about that. And then another thing, you said that the blood samples were taken before the session, right after the session. 24 hours after the session, and there was one more.
No, it's just the three for
just
now.
the three. Okay, so the question is, I read it, but maybe it would be good to clarify for the listeners why those intervals were actually chosen, and what was the difference between those time.
Oh, sure. So and let's see if I can remember all of the numbers, because that's something that, I can't attest to the accuracy of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll talk about that. Then I'll talk about the therapy that was done, because it's really important. So obviously, you've got to get a before picture. And in some instances, that a patient can be, or a subject can be, their own control. So you want to know what's the baseline, what genes are being expressed, right now. So you do that before the session. Now you want to know after a session, and the sessions were approximately 90-minute sessions. And then afterwards, you want to know, has anything occurred in that 90 minutes that's worthwhile? And so it's logic, really. So in the first study, gosh, I'm going to get these numbers mixed up. I know. I think there was like 7 or 8 genes that were turned on or turned off. And but it was certainly, these are like gene families. You start getting into these specifics, it's like so detailed we can lose people. But to make it simple, anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, stem cells were turned on, and apoptosis was turned on, and a couple of other things. And then 24 hours later, the question was, I wonder if more genes got turned on. And in the first one, I believe it was 57 57 or 77. It was 77. And so this is an example of the fact that if I give you an idea, and if you start to roll with that idea, right, this is just in general, then the next day you're going to have so much more richness about what that original idea was. And so in this respect, it's that the body, I think, was starting to ask, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Now, subjectively, the subjects in the study, they received genuine therapy about a real problem or issue that they had that was important to them in the moment. So it was a real therapy session. A lot of research, by the way that research needs to be structured, is doesn't necessarily do that. The original study, they beat us in publication, and so they're number one in this field. They Dusick et al. And they did not have real therapy. They just had people repeat the number one over and over again. And they didn't get stem cells to be turned on. And they didn't get apoptosis. So I think that and when you're saying the number one over and over again, it's kind of hypnotic. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a decent style of research, but it's not real life.
Yeah.
And I've always been interested in real life, as was my husband, Ernest Rossi. So the therapy itself, and we've refined this over time so that we can literally have a protocol that people can use. So the first proof of principle subject, it was simply therapy in the way that the Rossis do therapy. You know, if you're going to do a study, why not use your work, right? And your therapy. So, but now we call it the mind-body transformation, mind-body therapy transformation protocol. And it's based on, a number of things. So to begin with the simple part, it's that there's 4 stages. There's a 4-stage creative cycle that everybody goes through your entire life, every hour and a half or 2 throughout the day and night. And it's based on chronobiology. And that is in stage 1, you have a question, a concern, this sort of thing. And in stage 2, you work through that. That's the difficult part. That's why people come to therapy, is they're stuck in stage 2. And stage 3, there's the possibility of a spark of a new idea or a new direction or a feeling. And it's kind of called the aha stage. And then stage 4 is where you're going to put it into your daily life. So this happens whether you have an intellectual idea about it or if it's just plain happening in other levels of consciousness within your body. But to do the therapy itself, and any good psychotherapy is based on the 4-stage creative cycle, whether the therapists are realizing it or not. It's building blocks. It's really basic. But when you can harness it and understand where a person is within the course of therapy, within the course of the therapy session, the therapist can be really calm and easy and help assist the person to get to where they want to be. So I'm not sure if I explained that sufficiently, Jan, but that's kind of the therapy in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's true. So we've got the general model explained a bit, the psychosocial genomic basics standing behind all that, and yeah. So so generally the therapy employed was hypnosis in, as you said, Rossi style.
Yes.
Was it
Yeah.
any particular protocol, or was it individualized based on the over ongoing experience?
Well, within the framework of the protocol itself
Mhm,
is a freedom to explore.
mhm,
That it's so easy to experience, and it's not as easy to talk about it. That in this really permissive way of working with people, where that I, for instance, I always follow, I never lead, or I almost never lead. I don't tell people what to do, say, think, or feel. But in understanding that when a person is coming to in stage one, that they're perplexed about something, maybe they already know, like, I don't understand why I'm being mistreated, for instance. It really hurts my feelings, I'm really being mistreated. And that has, like, there's many ways of mistreatment. And then it's going to take courage for that person, courage and support. That's what the therapist is there for, to say, well, let's explore that. Let's see if you can come to a new understanding. And so often that I encourage people, it's going to happen internally. And so in encouraging people to go inside, I almost never tell anyone to shut their eyes, for instance, but when people are ready to tune in to the depths of their insides, they naturally shut their eyes. It's what we do. We don't want to have the outward distractions. And at that particular point, when a person is in that really difficult spot, they just need to be, they need courage. And so we encourage them. It's like, that's right. Maybe do a time limited thing as you're watching a person that is going into suffering. It's like, I wonder if you can stay with that for a minute or two. And often you'll see a tiny little nod,
mhm,
and it's like, okay. And then when it's been a minute, you can literally say, it's been 1 minute. Do you think you could do one more?
mhm,
And they that most often people can. And then when it's been another minute, you say, well, good. Well, you've been there. I wonder what will happen now. The client may or may not want to use words at this point. And it's a wonderful way of practicing to use fewer words if that's the way that you are interested in experimenting as a therapist. Some people like to talk the whole time. It's okay. But you can see the person, and they're going into that the iterations is probably the best way that I can describe it. As
mhm,
they're like puzzling through this, they're puzzling through this, they're puzzling through this on so many different levels. And the least interesting is usually the cognitive level of what they're going through. And then you'll see on their face, or their breathing pattern, or their posture, you'll see something shift. And when there is a shift with that, it's very, very tender. And that's a time that you realize, all right, they're starting to come into a stage 3. And just when you think that, they go right back down into the depths of it. They yo-yo back and forth between stage 2 and stage 3. And then you look for other signs. And a lot of times there's little upward, beginnings of a smile, because most often when people are going through something really difficult, there's a frown on their face, as
mhm,
is appropriate. And when they start to be neutral in their mouth position, is it's like that's when the therapist wonders, will there be any indication of a smile? And that's when the therapist can say, Yes, go with that. So again, it's it's a way of if they're saying a few words or not. And every therapist knows that when the person is really deep in all of this, their volume of speaking sometimes is so low you can't make out the words even if you've tried, and you don't want to say, okay, speak up, because you don't want to interfere with the process. And so being comfortable with that, you're not necessarily going to understand every word, but when you're reading the face and you're seeing, then there becomes a deep breath. It's as if letting it all go with a deep breath, that that they are either in a stage 3 and aha, or they're getting there. And so it's so easy as a therapist, when you know this, you can genuinely smile because they're getting something that it is that they need. And when they come out of it, and generally speaking, I don't tell people to open up their eyes. That it's a sign when they're doing it all, by themselves. There's occasions where the clock is running out, you're going to have to bring them forward. But most of the time that it's a really nice signal. And so in this protocol, it goes through the 4 stages. And so I've just been through stage 3. And in stage 4, every therapist is a little different with this. But it really is about, so how are you going to apply this? But you don't say that, it's that's when the questions come. I wonder if this is going to have meaning in your life for you now. You want them to continue because this is internal for them. I wonder if this is going to continue. I wonder what you'll dream tonight, or how you'll wake up tomorrow, and what thoughts will come to you.
So that's the point where post-hypnotic suggestions come, and other means of extending the change that happened within that experience onto
Exactly.
the real, onto the I wouldn't say real, everyday, I would say common everyday life.
Right. And so the sensitivity of this protocol is really the sensitivity for the therapist to understand about the 4-stage creative cycle. Of course, when it's a research oriented, that there's more like specific questions within the protocol itself. But that would be another experience that we would have in actually going through the protocol. If people are interested, we could absolutely do that, because it's a great teaching experience. And of course, for the therapists out there, I just want you to get better and better and better at what you do, and feel more comfortable, more confident, and freer. And at the end of the day of being a therapist, I want you to feel so relaxed and happy that you're ready to go out and maybe enjoy some friends, or your spouse, or your children, or somebody in your family, and not be so exhausted because you've been trying to solve people's problems all day.
Yeah. I don't know what to add to that. Generally, I agree.
I thought you would, but so to kind of summarize, why is it that psychosocial genomics is so exciting, and why I encourage continuing research? Now, our research was done in a hypnosis paradigm, in a very specific hypnosis paradigm, but for people that have other practices that they really love. There's many people that just, they love solution focused therapy. And it's that, how can we then do gene expression studies in that? Do we find out that the same kinds of things are happening on a gene expression level? Is there certain techniques and certain clients that benefit more from one therapeutic style than another? These are the questions that I have in my mind. But the idea, the takeaway is, oh my immune system can become so much better, that my responses of my immune system, meaning I can be, that the potential of I can be healthier physically. And for sure when you're healthier physically, you're going to be healthier mentally. And the converse is true.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. The opposite is also true.
Exactly.
When you
Well,
are,
I think we've answered that question. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, I'm content. So, what do you think?
I think we've answered this question, and we will hear from people to say, well, I want to hear more about this facet. I want to hear more about the protocol. I want to hear more about the details. And that can be done either in a podcast or by referring to various papers that have been written.
Yeah, true. So, wrapping it all up, maybe I would say, if all of you who are listening have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us through our emails, I think, other means of communication, Facebook pages, and all the other ways that you can find to ask us the questions that we will jointly and happily answer for you. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And just wishing everybody, my taglines are be well, be happy, celebrate.
This was
life.
Another episode of our Experiencing Consciousness podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jan. You're the best. Be well, be happy, celebrate life.